Welcome back to Reliving Retro, and if you're here for the first time, we are a podcast that plays a random game every single week, and then we get together and talk about it and bring on a guest. And this week, we have a very special guest, and I'll allow him to introduce himself. Go ahead, man.
I'm very special. Thank you. Hi, my name is DMC PCRT. Mainly just go by DMC these days. I'm a gaming TikToker, I guess, is the primary, but I am also doing a lot more on Twitch lately and working into YouTube. But yeah, I talk a lot about retro gaming, PC gaming a little bit, and then the occasional Lions shit post. Am I allowed to say that? So
You can say whatever you want, man.
There we go. So, but yeah, so that's what it is. We've been working through games like Chrono Trigger lately. We just finished Silent Hill. And we're one more. Oh, we're doing free plays on Wednesdays, and we're working on Beyond Oasis for the Sega. And then every Monday on Twitch, we're also going through the entire Resident Evil series. We just got to Resident Evil 3 for the Dreamcast now. So
yeah. I gotta say, man, as a guy who plays one game a week, I get very overwhelmed sometimes by that one game. So I don't know how you manage 4 to 5 games a week. That's amazing.
It's all block time that's set aside specifically for that, and that's generally the only games I play, except for some Counter-Strike with friends afterwards. That's about it.
Oh, there you go.
Nice.
So,
So doesn't really have anything to do with the show, but quick comparison, I guess. Chrono Trigger to Earthbound.
Ooh, completely different. They're really
completely different games, right?
Mm-hmm.
You enjoyed Earthbound though, right?
I did enjoy Earthbound. I don't know if I put it up as high as a lot of people do. I liked it, and I think I am one of those people that really gripes at the inventory management. And if I wasn't playing it on stream with people saying like, hey, you might want to put that back or call the pizza place or whatever, I probably would have given up halfway through, or at least not given up, but just been like, all right, here's a strategy guide. Tell me what I need. Because there's some of it was cryptic too, but that's the era of gaming. So I'm sure Chrono Trigger will have those moments too, especially with the time hopping you can do. I'm sure it's easy to just be going all around in that game, but we'll
you get lost pretty easy probably.
I was gonna say that I don't know because I've never played Chrono Trigger.
Oh,
just like he's never played Earthbound, and that was actually the kind of the
birth.
The birth of the podcast, I guess, is because I was telling him, I was like, yo, have you ever played Earthbound? And he's like, no. And I'm like, dude, if you like RPGs, you should play Earthbound. He's like, oh, well, if you like RPGs, you should play Chrono Trigger. And I'm like, yeah, I never have.
There you go.
Then we decided to do this, and we haven't played either yet. So
someday,
longer
someday
games,
we'll get to
I get it. Yeah.
But yeah, so you are a special guest because you're the first guest we've ever had on the show, and this is the third time you've been on. So for those who haven't been following along with the show and those who aren't here because of DMC, why don't you go ahead and kind of let us know what your introduction to gaming was, your first system, how you got it, that kind of thing.
Sure. And I'm actually going to give you a spin on this one because I was thinking about it before too. So obviously, like I've said before on this, is that I am the youngest of 4. So there was just systems in the house. There was a Sega and an NES when I was pretty much as long as I can remember. And, I would just play the games that we had. And really, it was very, what would you call this? Sequential, I guess you could say. Every time we got a system, we would get it later. My parents would buy a good amount of games to start us off, some used mainly. And that was pretty much the library that we'd have the entire time. So we had like 12 NES games, I think like 6 Sega games. And then like when we got a PlayStation, we didn't get it until Crash Bandicoot and Tomb Raider were greatest hits. You know what I mean? So we would just have like a pile of games, and that was basically it. Maybe some rentals here and there, And but yeah, so it just was always there. My older brothers would play games, my older sister would play games, and I just grew up being a gamer. I never knew not being a gamer, I guess, and it's always just been the thing. But as far as Sonic goes, which is relevant to our conversation today, it's one of the first games I do remember playing and just being completely enamored by the colors compared to, I was playing NES games and I've just popped that one and I was just like, what is happening? And, there's just so much going on so fast. And I would plug in, any headphones I could find to my Sega Genesis and just put it on and sit there like a little kid watching the TV. And yeah, so that Sonic 1 especially, but Sonic 2 is one of my all-time favorite games. So that is a core memory, always playing that game. And it was just always there.
Yeah, fair enough. What would you say some of your favorite types of games to play now are?
So like I was saying with Counter-Strike, I do play with some friends pretty frequently. We're terrible. We're always in the silvers. We're never going to get better. I do play that as far as competitive goes. And then I play RPGs for the most part. Right now, especially doing just this big retro, just constant thing is a lot of Super Nintendo RPGs. Like we mentioned, I did Final Fantasy 3 and then jumped right to Earthbound. Now we're in Chrono Trigger, likely going to do Super Mario RPG or Final Fantasy 2 after that. So, I mean, it's just, onslaught. Every Tuesday is an RPG essentially.
Awesome.
And then survival horror, just like I said, I just did Silent Hill, and then Resident Evil, working through the entire series, and then I also beat Dead Space recently, the first one for the first time. So
awesome.
It's a lot of I like getting spooked, and I like seeing numbers get bigger. That's essentially my favorite things.
There you go. No, that's awesome. So we did play Sonic 3D Blast for this past week. Prior experience to this game, DMC, have you had any?
Yes, I hated this game when I was a kid. I absolutely hated it. So, and that's why I was like, we should check this one out. If you're interested, because again, Sonic is fast. You get this game, you put it in, it's like, why is I feel we'll talk about it obviously, but I feel like I'm slipping and it's not fast and I'm not doing the things I'm usually doing when I'm playing a Sonic game. So anytime I would try to give this game a chance, I would go into it with that mindset, and I hated it. I rented it. My brothers and I were very disappointed because we're like, well, this isn't what we expected. And I got the Sonic Mega Collection for the GameCube. Same thing. I was like, I'm gonna give it another shot. I'm like, oh my god, this game is terrible. And so that was my experience with it, is that I hated it. And then when it came to this, I'm like, I'm gonna throw all those expectations out and come into it with a different mindset, which we will touch on later. So
all right.
Yeah, definitely. Fair. Yaiser, have you ever played it before?
No, never.
So this was your first go with it?
Yeah, my very first.
And this was also my first time playing it. So
perfect.
It's all pretty fresh here for everybody. So roughly how many hours of it did you play, DMC?
I did beat the game, and I
Nice.
think it took me about 3.5 to 4 hours. So yeah, I sat down with the cartridge pretty much after Resident Evil on Monday, and I played for like just 2.5 hours straight, and I got through more than half the game.
Nice.
I said actually it was more like 4 hours because I was dinking around with some of the settings and stuff like that. So
cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool.
And Yaiser, how long did you play for?
How many hours? About 25% of 1 hour.
Oh no,
15 minutes, buddy?
Yeah, I think so. Roughly.
Oh no,
I couldn't deal with it, man. It hurt my head.
Yeah. I played it for about 2 hours, I'd say. I didn't beat it technically. You told me about the Barracuda thing.
the Barracuda.
Yeah. So if you put in Barracuda, which I'll tell you took me forever to figure out on a Switch controller.
Yeah,
There's no C button, so I'm like, okay.
Oh,
I had to do it with an Xbox controller a couple times, and I was like, wait, which one is what? But yeah.
So if you enter Barracuda at the start menu, it brings up a level select screen, which I think honestly is great for the time because of no save. There's no saves in that game, right? Normally
There's no saves. And I got a fun story about that level select, if I can interject real quick.
Go ahead.
When this game was made, it was made by Traveler's Tales. So Sega approached them, was like, hey, we want to make another game. This game came out in 96 or 97.
Yeah, it was
way
late.
after the Genesis was done being made.
Yep.
So it was a late game, and it was a 3D entry. They're like, hey, we need a 3D entry. We want to get something just in case the Sega Saturn Sonic game fell through, which it did. So they were like, hey, we want something. They made it in like 8 months, and there is a failsafe that if an error occurs with the cartridge, it just takes you to level select as if though you did something. So
Interesting.
So some people, I believe, say that if you actually take the cartridge and just wiggle it, it'll take you to the level select. I'm pretty sure that that's like a Sega myth. I wouldn't suggest doing it, but because you can just do Barracuda. But yeah, I was reading about that was one of those like ways to get past quality in such a short time, is that if something happens, it'll just take you to level select, and it's like, oh, you unlocked a secret. So
I was gonna say that it reminds me of your TikTok where you do the Sonic and Knuckles and you stack them all up on top of each other. It would be interesting to see if you put that theory to test, if it actually works or not.
I'll have to bust out a Genesis because I don't want to do that in my XI, but that would definitely be a fun thing to
don't
test
do
out.
it in your XI.
Yeah, I'm not going to do it in an XI. I thought about it actually, and I'm like, not in that.
I can't even imagine how expensive those things are now.
I think 400 when I picked mine up, but I got it on a 20% off sale, so it was like 320 and blah blah blah.
Yeah, I remember like years ago when I first got into collecting, those things were like $120, and that was like unheard of for an old system like that. You know what I mean? Like you were buying Super Nintendos for like $20 at the time.
Yep. And that was
Yeah.
even when it must have gone up, because when they were in stores originally new, they were getting clearance stock for $20 and still sitting because it was just so late when it came out. So,
Oh yeah, no, this was like 10 years ago.
yeah. Yep.
Ish. But yeah, those things are wild. What exactly can they do again? They can play Genesis and they can play what, Sega CD?
Sega CD. Yep. The reason why I think a lot of the Sega community or Sega Genesis community likes it so much is because it's off the shelf parts for JVC. So if the lens goes, it's not hard to find that. If the drive goes, it's not hard to find that. As opposed to the other Sega CDs where like the front loading disc tray one, that's a bunch of moving parts you don't need. And then the Sega CDX or whatever it's called, the little portable one.
Yep.
That one is super fragile and all the parts are really hard to find. Like a lot of those are just dying and people are like, that's it. I'm done. I don't have any more. So
yeah, a lot of those disc-based systems from like the 90s are awful when it comes to repair and just comes to like reliability and durability just in general.
Right.
Like the Jaguar is awful and it's it's not great. I think the 3DO is pretty bad too.
Pretty sure, yeah.
Stuff like that.
I had to open up my X side and it was just 4 screws because there was a little lever that wasn't going down. You actually take a mechanical pencil screw, or not screw. What do you call that? Spring. Cut it in half and you put it in there and that fixes it. Like that's the common fix, is that you're supposed to pretty much add a resistance to it. It's hilarious. So
yeah, it's pretty awesome. All right, do we want to start off with the story for this one?
Sure.
DMC, you want to kick it off for story?
Yeah, I'll kick off the story. I'm going to give it just a solid 2.5 because the story exists only to give Sonic a reason to go to Flicky Island. They resurrected basically a dead IP and we're like, hey, remember that Flicky game that we had back in the 80s? Let's say Sonic, those are his friends. So that's basically it.
So interesting, because I thought, so does this story not explain the story for all Sonic games?
I think that's what they were potentially allowing the interpretation of, because when you're playing the other Sonic games, there's little creatures that are inside of all the robots that Robotnik is stealing. And I think they, like I said, they took the Flicky IP and was like, let's just use that. Because I think in Japan, it's actually called Flicky's Island.
Because I never heard of Flicky or what a Flicky was. I didn't know at all. So
and exactly, because they don't use them much anymore.
Yeah, so I just assumed that this was kind of, since they didn't do it in the first, because the first Sonic games, they don't really explain the story, right?
Right.
It's just kind of assumed you're saving animals. You hit that capsule at the end of the level or whatever, all the animals pop out.
Right.
But it was never, especially when I was a kid, it was never obvious to me what these, why Dr. Robotnik was taking these animals. Right. I had no idea. So I actually thought that the story was explaining the story for like the Sonic the Hedgehog games in general, which is why I gave it a 3.5, because I was like, oh, does this explain the story? Because I had no idea.
It gives a reason. I'll give you that. Like, it gives a reason why Sonic's doing what he's doing.
Yeah, so. I mean, and so because essentially it says at the beginning, right? He's turning these animals into robots so the robots can look for the Chaos Emeralds for him, and then and then he can take over the world using the power of the Chaos Emeralds.
Okay.
What about you, Yaiser?
So I had no reference from the first 2 games. This is the first Sonic game I think I really played.
Oh, wow.
So basically, from my perspective, it was kill these robots, get the birds, and slam dunk them in the ring. I gave this a 2 because I don't know. I'm saving birds. I don't know why, but
yeah,
that's what I'm doing. That's the story so far.
I like how your interpretation of the game is essentially this is Marble Madness and NBA Jam, like put together.
Yeah, I mean,
you're just rolling around on this like little 3D platform thing, and then you grab a bird and you slam dunk it through the hoop, and that's it.
That's exactly what I experienced.
Everybody goes home happy. I'm surprised I was so high on the story there. Maybe I should reconsider.
I thought about putting it at a 3 for what it's worth, but since it really seems like the story doesn't matter in the overall Sonic canon, which I can't believe is a sentence I just said out loud. But I just think that it was just mainly a usage of these characters, and after beating the game, it's the same story as all the other Sonic. Hey, congratulations, you freed the birds. You did that before. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
yeah, I wasn't aware of any story in any Sonic games until Sonic Adventure for the Dreamcast.
That's when they start getting more cohesive. Sonic CD actually is potentially where that starts to happen more, and Sonic 3 and Knuckles. Like that's actually got a story between Sonic 3 and Knuckles. If there's one to play, as much as I don't care for Sonic 3, if you want a story that's kind of explained just through little cutscenes, Sonic 3 and Knuckles has that, and the rest really don't. So.
Also, I'm going to bring this up now because I'm not sure if it pertains to story or gameplay.
Sure.
It probably pertains more to gameplay, but we're transitioning to that anyway. So there are various times in this game where you see Knuckles and Tails. What do they provide to you in this game? Because every time I talk to them, they just take as many rings as I have. So
okay.
What is that about?
So they're the secret course. You have to have 50 rings, and then they send you over to the secret emerald course to try and get a chaos emerald.
So anytime Knuckles took 37 rings from me, it was just for nothing.
You were 13 rings short. If you go back with 13 more, then you'd get sent.
Oh, okay, cool.
He's basically like storing them for you, so you don't lose them when you get
exactly.
hit.
Yep.
That's interesting. Gotcha. Yeah, I did not know. I go talk to him, and he's just like, "Thanks for the rings, buddy." And I'm just like,
when I was a kid, I thought the same
cool.
thing. I'm like, "All right, Knuckles, you asshole. Thanks."
Yeah, he's stealing all my shit.
Yeah, for real. I didn't understand. I was just like, okay, and because at first I didn't even notice that he was taking the rings. I just saw the number pop up, and I'm like, "What the hell does that number mean?" And then I just
then you get hit and die immediately.
Yeah, and then I just go away, and then I'm like, "Oh, I didn't have like rings that entire time." Okay. Yeah, no. So I just thought that was interesting, I guess. I think it became a little I became a little more aware of it once I pulled up the level select screen and I saw that you could do like Knuckles or Tails bonus stages. And I was just like, oh, that has to have something to do with that. But yeah, I didn't know that it was like 50 rings or whatever. Probably something I could have looked up with the Google.
Well, just like all the other Sonics, as far as Sonic 1, if you have more than 50 rings, I believe that's how you get the Chaos Emerald thing after the stage ends. Sonic 2, that's how you get the little stars above a checkpoint to do the Emerald Challenge. And then Sonic 3, I don't think you actually have to have 50 rings to do an Emerald Challenge. You have to find the giant ring. But 50 rings, I think, lets you do just like a bonus stage. It might just be 25, though. I can't remember.
Gotcha. Let's transition into gameplay now. Yaiser, let's be nice here. What'd you think?
Do you want me to be nice?
No. I want you to tell me your honest opinion.
I fucking kind of hated it, dude.
Cool.
It was so slippery. First of all, it was hard to even hit some rings. Especially if you got the ditch or whatever, there's like ditches and like a couple rings inside the ditch.
Yeah.
You're trying to just swoop in there and grab these 4 fucking rings.
Would you just end up circling?
Yeah, dude. It's just like too slippery. And after playing for maybe 5 minutes, I don't know what it was. Like it had something to do with the way like the camera moved as you were moving. It was giving me like crazy like motion sickness, like headache. I hated it.
It's funny that you say that, and it sucks that you went through it. But as I was playing this game, I actually was thinking of a friend of mine who gets motion sickness when they play games, and I'm like, "There's no way he could play this. Like he would be done 5 minutes in," which is exactly what happened to you, apparently. So
yeah, I don't blame you. I've never experienced that before until this game. So, but I mean, I will be nice, and I'll give it the benefit of that because I only played fucking 15 minutes of it. I didn't even make it all the way through the first level. I made it to the third stage of it, but not even to the end. I'll give it a 2. I'm going to give it a 2 because I would have kept playing if it wasn't like excruciating pain. I probably would have played a little more.
Another question too for you guys. Were you playing it on emulation through the Steam version or console or classic?
I was emulating on my PC.
Okay.
And I was a foot away from my curved, 27-inch.
I wonder if curved monitor makes it even worse.
I was wondering the same thing. I don't know,
Didn't even think about that. I can imagine that would be a nightmare.
Hurting my brain. Yeah, it really hurt.
Well, I'll bring down the Switch later, and you can see if it's easier on the flat.
It probably
Switch
will
screen.
be.
Yeah, because I played this game on the Switch. I played it on the Genesis collection. I actually was lazy enough that on Tuesday I was like, I need to start playing some Sonic. And I was like, I can go downstairs, and because for whatever reason, my desktop, I can't connect to Wi-Fi, right? I can only hardwire it. And the only hardwiring place I can do that is down here on my first floor.
I have a card. If you want a wireless card? I have one in my closet.
Sure.
I'll give it to you.
Thanks, buddy.
That's teamwork.
Right? Yeah, so I was lazy enough that I was like, I don't feel like going downstairs.
You totally bought it for $5, didn't you?
No, I spent 30, buddy.
Oh, you bought the whole collection.
I bought the Genesis collection because you know what? I was thinking,
that's great.
I was like, I'm gonna play a lot more Genesis games. How many games are on this? And it's like 50 games. I'm like, you know what?
Yeah.
You know what? It's worth it. I think
you get Phantasy Star 2 through 4 in that even, so that's pretty cool. So yeah.
You do, yeah. Yeah, there were quite a bunch of games on that thing, and I was just like, all right, you know what? It's worth it. At $30, it's fine. Anyway, so for gameplay, I gave it a 3, and I felt like really the only reason why I gave it like that low of a score is because I felt like for the most part it was really redundant. It was go through the level, collect 5 birds, dunk the birds in the ring, right? And then you move on to the next portion. I really wanted to keep progressing, but I felt like the levels were long for what I had to do, if that makes any sense. Really, because like the levels weren't they don't take too long. They probably take like 5 to 6 minutes or something like that if you don't know where anything is. You know,
if you take more than 10 minutes, it'll actually tell you took too long or something like that. When like on the timer, when you finish a level, it'll actually just tell you took too long.
Oh, really?
Funny. Yeah,
that is funny. They kind of dunk on you there. Yeah, I don't know. I gave it a 3. I did have a little bit of issue with the camera initially with kind of how fast it was like moving with me. It was a little disorienting. However, I played this game for about an hour, and after an hour I didn't even notice it anymore. So I'm not going to knock it too much on that. It was more just how redundant I felt like the levels were. But I will say the boss fights are a lot of fun. I like the boss fights.
How do you fight the boss?
You just jump on them.
Oh, you jump on
Yeah, you got to jump on them. But like every level's a little bit different on when that opportunity is.
Yep.
Gotcha.
I can't remember. It's the ruins level, which I'll come back to in a minute. That boss fight I thought was pretty clever with the hands coming down and trying to squash you, and then you have to jump on the hands to get to a high enough level to jump onto Robotnik. So a lot of the boss fights I thought were actually pretty creative. So
yeah.
I actually enjoyed the boss fights for what it's worth. And I didn't go through each level and play the boss fights, although that is something I do want to go back and do.
It's a good idea, especially with the level select. It's easy, yeah.
Yeah, with the level select, I'm like, okay, I get the point of like going through and getting the birds and stuff like that. I feel like it's okay to play Act 1 of each level, and then fine, you can skip Act 2 or whatever and go to the boss fight.
I have a note about that, but we'll talk about that in a second. So.
and then I did use level select to get to I did the final level where you fight the final boss or whatever, and I did beat that. And I thought that boss fight was actually really cool too, because it was almost like a boss rush in a sense, where you had you have to keep going through all the different stages, and you have to do it twice, I believe.
Yep, and you only get 6 rings pretty much at the beginning, which you can save half if you want to just grab 3 on the loop. But if you lose them, they're gone.
Spoiler alert, I didn't know that you're gonna have to do it twice, so I grabbed them all.
Neither did I the first time. Yep.
Yep. I learned on my second time. I'm like, you know what? That's another thing I was actually going to bring up about Sonic in general is like you would think it's like collect as much but collect as many rings as possible and then go fight the boss. I feel like it's more like get one, go fight the boss, lose it, go get another one. Because sometimes when you get hit, you lose. I mean, every time you get hit, you lose all of them. You can't collect all of them again. So sometimes I just grab 1 or 2 and then I go try to hit the boss. And
that is one of my biggest gripes with it. I'm glad you bring that up. Yep.
Yeah. So, I gave gameplay a 3, basically. I didn't hate it at all. I wouldn't say it was something that kept drawing me back in to play more and more, which those games I kind of reserve for 4s. And then the camera did irk me a little bit, but it wasn't too bad. It was more just how redundant I felt like the Acts 1 and 2 were. But I did really like the boss fights. DMC gameplay.
All right. So I really tried to not let my Sonic bias cloud my judgment here. I actually set up some stuff. I don't know if you can see on cam, but I've got Sonic 3D Blast like in box here.
Nice.
Like
nice.
Got, a bunch of little toys. Shout out to Mighty the Armadillo. But anyway, after thinking about this game a lot and like I said, removing all Sonic expectations and coming into it with like a blank slate, I settled on a 4 for gameplay.
Nice.
Now, I'm going to give you a couple reasons why. Look at the game not as a Sonic game, not running super fast, not trying to get to the end of the zone as quick as you can. Think of it more as hide and seek. if you look at it as hide and seek, where you're trying to find each individual little flicky here and there, and it's a little slower paced, and you run a little bit and you see, like, scan the area and stuff like that to see what's next. I found myself enjoying it a lot more that way.
Yeah.
Some of the enemies, like, yeah, the hitboxes are a little weird. So I found that if I just kind of slowed down, started spin dashing and aimed just right, and then hit them, it was like satisfying because then it was like pulling off a planned attack. You know what I mean? So like that was fun. I really liked that. The mention of Knuckles and Tails taking your rings was actually a benefit. It's a good design in my opinion because, like Yaiser said, it's like a bank. So if you get like 40, you know where they are. It's like, all right, I'm going to book it over there as safe as I can, and then try and find the other 10. You know what I mean? And then the special stage itself, which I don't think either of you got to then from the sound of it.
Nope.
No.
It is,
thought he was just stealing my rings, man.
It is addicting. So that's how you get the Chaos Emeralds. And it's basically a top-down view, and you're on a bridge that you have to navigate left and right as it's coming at you in a little bit of like a fake 3D. But it's almost like modern-day Endless Runners, where you're just trying to grab rings and you have to jump over bombs as you're doing it. And it's got a great design part to it, where you go for maybe 5 to 7 seconds, and there's a flat wall. So you can actually run into the wall, take a breath, look at the next section that you're about to do, and then you can jump on it and go to the next part. So that's really well designed in my opinion as well, because then it gives you a second again to kind of plot out what you're supposed to do. And I was terrible at those when I was a kid, and I went through 7 and got all 7 Chaos Emeralds on my first try when I came into it with a fresh mindset this time.
Nice.
So I was like, all right. So that was really well done. And then as far as we're talking just overall stage designs, like you were saying, in the Ruins level, they have a little turbine that you can get on where Sonic gets spun into a tornado.
I thought that was a lot of fun. Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
A lot of fun. And it's also kind of restrictive because you can't jump. The second you jump, you lose the tornado. You need the tornado to break down barriers. And also using the tornado will break down barriers to get to Tails and to Knuckles. So I thought that was really good. Okay.
I actually preferred to navigate the course that way. I felt like I could control Sonic easier.
Yeah, he is slow, and he also can hurt anything for the most part, I think, right?
Yeah.
If you're on the enemies.
So as long as you didn't bump into something that could hurt you, you could just keep flying around the course like that. I think that's why the Ruins level, combined with its music, but we'll get there.
We will.
was my favorite course. And I didn't feel the drag of like the redundancy of like those levels until I got to the 4th stage. Is it the diamond one? Is that
the snow one?
Yeah, the snow one. That's what it is. Yeah. I didn't really feel that until I got there. But one more gripe actually I had with the gameplay. The platforming.
That's what I was going to get to. That's exactly what I was going to get to next.
Yes, because that's one thing I forgot to say. Because I originally had this game at a 3.5. I knocked it down to 3 because they expect you to platform in this like 3D world on like an isometric plane, and it's very just hard.
Fair.
Yeah.
So that is actually what takes off a full point for me. No matter where it was going to go, it was never going to go higher than a 4 because the platforming. This game is at its worst when you're supposed to platform, and it is very uncomfortable to navigate. And this is another thing where I actually want to know what you were playing on, because it was easier on the Sega version, because that may be just where it was natively designed for. But jumps that I can make with no problem on the Sega, when I was doing it on my Steam computer in the living room and stuff like that, it was just going right through it. Like it would not get on the platform. And I was like, you know what? I wonder if emulation just doesn't do this right, because this was not a problem I was having. And I'm not trying to blame a controller or anything. It's a very capable computer. So I'm just like, this has got to be a problem with emulation and not with my controlling of it. Because when I came back to the actual hardware to finish the game and play the same stages, it was not a problem. So I was like, that must be, maybe some people have a harder time on modern hardware where it just doesn't translate as well. But again, this game is at its absolute weakest when you have to do platforming. But a benefit to that for the gameplay points, in my opinion, is that it's actually very rare that you have to platform.
Yeah, it's not very, you don't do it a whole lot, which is what I was going to say. Yaiser would have been the only one to experience the PC issue, because I did play it on Switch. I didn't have a problem falling through platforms or anything like that, but I did find just the platforming in general was extremely annoying, and it just seemed unnecessary. Like the game was playing fine. I didn't need the platforming aspect. It's not a real Sonic game, technically. So you didn't need to build something into it like that,
when you had to do the platforming, it's like, this, you don't need to do this. Everything else is so good without it. Don't do this. They would have benefited from leaving that out. So
I don't think I even got far enough to experience that.
No, there's not. I don't think there's really any platforming in the first stage. I think it kind of starts to. What stage does it kind of start?
I'd say the Diamond Dust Zone is where it starts a bit more. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I had, like I said, the platforming issue was my biggest gripe.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you agree,
that.
because it was rough.
If we're all done with gameplay, we can move over to visuals.
Okay.
All right, I'll start it off with visuals. This is where I feel like the game absolutely shined. For a Sega Genesis game, and I know, like, I mean, I don't know how they pulled off the 3D models the way they did for a 16-bit system, but I was very, very close to giving this game a 5. I gave it a 4. I gave it a 4.5.
Holy shit!
For visuals, I thought it looked amazing. Like, I thought, I don't know, the colors were bright and vibrant. Even if we're talking like character design, like just the animals that they chose, all the different types of animals and like robot animals, I guess, that you can fight in the game. And I love like the different like themed worlds, which is very Sonic, right? That they have these. One of my favorites was, I can never remember the names, but it's basically like the casino levels.
You liked that stage?
I liked the way it looked.
Okay, I hated playing it. Yeah, but it did look cool. You're right. Yeah,
yeah, I liked the way it looked. Playing it was pretty annoying. The ice or snow stage or whatever, that one looked really cool too.
Yes, it looked super impressive. Like the ice effects looked really, really good.
Yep. Yeah, playing this game initially, right? Obviously, completely different type of game, but just the way it was presented, it was like, this is Sonic's first transition into 3D. It reminded me a lot of Mario's first transition into 3D, which most people are going to think immediately was Super Mario 64, but it was Super Mario RPG with the 3D character models and playing it on an isometric plane. And there is a little bit of platforming in that game as well. It's not really necessary, but you can do it to kind of get to certain things in the game. Hitting blocks and whatever. And it kind of reminded me of that, how it was kind of like awkwardly trying to make me platform in a game that obviously does not really fit the platforming. Right. But as far as like the visuals go, I thought the visuals were absolutely outstanding, especially for a Sega Genesis game. Obviously it was a late release, so it was really pushing like just the capabilities of the system at this point. But I think this game looks better than almost any 32X game I've ever seen.
Dang. Wow. So I don't know if you've played like virtual racing or anything like that.
I haven't played virtual
racing. It's impressive what they did with the 3D models. It is very simple polygons, but this is very much the same tricks that they did actually with Super Mario RPG and Donkey Kong Country. They took 3D models and then put them into sprites. That was the inspiration behind this, actually. So you're spot on when it comes to using Super Mario RPG with that. I don't want to jump in here for
no, you're good.
Stuff, but yeah, I agree with what you're saying there as far as that goes. So.
But do you want to continue, and what do you give visuals?
You know what, I'm going to go ahead and give visuals 4.25 as well, because you're right, it is very, very impressive what they did. As I was playing this again on the CRT and then also on an LCD, I'm like, just wow, these colors, they pop. Each zone feels good. I like the way it looks. There's only a few little gripes here and there. Sonic, the run animation looks like he's gonna crap his pants the entire time. he just looks like he's just squeezing, and it's like, dude, we'll get there in a minute, all right. But the flickies look really good in the opening animation and stuff like that. Not that 3D thing that's very pixelated. That was cool for the time, but it looks terrible today. But like where it's playing the soft music and they're flying in the air and stuff like that. That looks really good. The little cutscenes that they do have look really good. The overall art style, it's so consistent in the art style, and it just nails everything well. The fire zone looks great. The diamond dust zone looks good. The final zone is really trippy and fun. Even though it's just a black background, it still just was fun. I really, really liked what they did. And like you said, they pushed the system as far as they could. It's a 4 meg cartridge, which is the biggest that Genesis had. So, yep.
Yeah, I thought they did a great job. What about you, Yaiser?
So, yeah, I think visually is probably, I don't know, it might be like the best part of the game, I guess. At least like when I first booted it up, and at least when the screen was standing still, I was like, wow, this looks fucking great. Yeah. It's not like real 3D. It's like you were saying, they use like 3D
tricks,
character designs, and used as like sprites, which is really cool. I mean, the movement is like 3D, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's like kind of faux 3D, right? It's not.
It is, but when this game came out, like I remember vividly when this game came out, because I remember thinking like, is this worth asking for on my Christmas list? Is it worth taking my Genesis out of my tote or what? Because I hadn't played the Genesis in years at this point, because I'd really been on to the Super Nintendo, and then the N64 was just coming out this year. Like I was getting an N64 for Christmas this year. Right. So at that point I was just like, I was kind of blown away. Like I remember seeing the cover, and I remember going into Blockbuster and kind of looking at the cover, and I remember being like, wow, like this looks crazy. Because obviously until then Sonic had been flat, right? So
right, completely.
Yeah.
2D,
so
right.
Yeah, so I mean, it is like a faux 3D, but it was still very impressive at the time, and I'm still impressed now, like looking at it for what they were able to do on the Genesis.
Yeah, and I mean, I agree with you. I thought it looked really great until, I don't know, man. Maybe it was just my eyes that night, or my brain, or something. But once I started moving that guy around, oh, I don't know. It was like I couldn't look at it any longer. So
Yeah.
I knocked it down. I gave it a 3 though, because it looked, standing still looked fucking great. But man, once it started moving, and I didn't really get to see any of the worlds past the first world, I guess.
Right.
Definitely worth maybe watching on YouTube. Like I said, try to get on a flat screen too. So.
I probably should have. Yeah. But I mean, that was my experience with it. So, you know,
yeah, totally fair.
I gotta knock it down a little bit, man.
For sure.
So I think 3. So 3 is pretty good.
Yeah. Any more to add for visuals, or are we good to move on to sound?
I think the visuals I'm pretty good with. Yeah, the characters all looked good. Knuckles looks kind of goofy, but that's about it.
Yeah. I didn't think he looked like super good, I guess. But,
yeah,
you know, it was fine, and I was more annoyed with him stealing my rings than I was with how he looked at the time. So, all right, moving on to sound. I'll start it off for sound. I was desperately hoping for some absolute Sonic bangers that have, you know what I mean, have kind of been made customary, I guess, with Sonic games. The first. With the first one, the second one, I didn't play the third one, so I don't really know music in that one as much. But once I got to the Ruin level, which I know is only the second level, man, that track is amazing. I absolutely love that one. I was like, sound doesn't impress me like too much. I was gonna go 2.5. I jumped it up a whole point because I love the Ruin track so much. So I went to a 3.5 with the sound. And there were some other ones. I ended up looking up the OST afterwards and listening to some other ones. A couple of the boss fight ones sound pretty cool. The volcano level, I actually like that one. And there was another one too, but I can't remember off the top of my head what it is.
I'm going to guess it's Diamond Dust Zone.
I do like that one. Like that one. But I thought that there was a different one too that I hadn't played that jumped off at me. But I can't remember what it is. But yeah, I gave it a 3.5. Like I said, my favorite is the Ruin level. As far as music goes, actually, as far as playing goes, that one's, I think, my favorite level in the game.
It might be the most unique combination for sure. That entire stage.
Yep. Yeah. Also, feel free to look up the Ruin metal cover on YouTube. It's pretty good.
It's a ripper.
Yeah. All right, DMC sound.
4.75. I'm giving this a big score here. Okay, huge. So Sonic soundtracks are one of the best parts of the entire series. That's without a doubt. And I think that, again, I, as a kid, pretty much only ever got to the Ruin levels, and that was about it, you know. And I never thought about the soundtrack at that point. And this game has hidden gems. Absolutely. There is a soundtrack here that a lot of the Sonic fandom has probably never even heard of before, just because the game is hard to get into for a lot of people. Yeah. Like you said, Rusty Ruin Zone, like, you know, the Green Grove is fine. And I can actually see that song turning people off because it's just kind of like in your face right at the beginning with like those Genesis like trumpet sounds, you know, where it's like, okay, let's take this down a notch, you know. And then, you know, Rusty Ruin's like, okay, that's pretty good. The boss theme, I love that bass line that comes in right when you're playing. It's just, it really kicks in, sounds good. But Diamond Dust Zone, like when I heard this, I was like, this is incredible. Like, this is just a Sega Genesis masterpiece. I loved it. And I actually looked up the soundtrack after I beat the game. And I guess Diamond Dust Zone is so popular with a lot of the Sonic fandom that when people make fan games, it's like customary to put that track in there. So people can be exposed to it. Yeah, because not a lot of people have heard it before. And I was like, oh, that's kind of a funny little thing. I came to that conclusion long before I read that. But yeah, I really, really like the soundtrack to this game. It was incredible. Now, as far as the actual sounds go, because I talk about that a lot, it's pretty much like Sonic's greatest hits from 1 through 3.
Yeah.
The boss sounds are from previous games, the jumping sounds, the spring sounds. A lot of it is just sounds taken from other games, and that's all the best of them. The only things that I would probably knock it down on is the bird tweets drove me insane when you lose them. I just did not like that because it also just didn't track where they were, in my opinion. Like, it might sound like it's coming from the right, but it's not coming from the right. It's just there. But that's, it just isn't perfect, I guess. Like I said, the first song isn't that great. But yeah, I think it's a very solid overall oral presentation. AURAL.
Did you play with headphones on?
I did not. So my CRT's got a little Edifier sound system. So it's like, what is that? 2 speakers and tweeters or something like that on each one, bookshelf speakers.
Okay.
But no, I didn't do it with headphones at all. It was all just through speakers the entire time.
Gotcha.
I bet you even through headphones probably even better. So,
well, because I was gonna say, you mentioned the birds tweeting, and I played it on my TV, not at like a super high volume or anything, like just like a normal. And I didn't really, I don't know that I even really heard the birds tweeting, or if it wasn't, it definitely wasn't something that annoyed me or like threw me off or something like that. So
must just be a personal preference.
Potentially, yeah. What about you, buddy, for sound?
So I'm at 3 for sound because I mean, I know I didn't get that far in the game. Don't kill me for that. But we listened to.
We're gonna kill you for it.
No, me and you listened to a good snippet of almost like all the tracks.
We listened to about a minute of each song.
Yeah, and I thought most of them were just okay.
Yeah,
and a couple of them were actually like pretty dope. So I went, a little over 2.5. If all of them were just meh, it would have been 2.5. But like a couple of them were pretty dope. None of them are as cool as the metal cover of that one. So, but I mean, I thought it was, for the most part okay. A couple of them were pretty dope. So I'm gonna land on a 3 here.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's fair. I guess my only issue with the sound is, like I said, growing up playing Sonic and Sonic 2, absolute bangers on those, and I kind of expected something sort of similar with, like, those are two, in my opinion, those are 2 of the games that have like some, like, the greatest soundtracks of all time.
Yeah, Sonic 2 is a front to back banger. There's not a miss on that one. Oil Ocean Zone, I just don't really care for that stage at all, but even that track is still pretty darn good. So
yeah. So I guess maybe I'm being a little bit rough on it, considering it's probably yeah. I mean, comparing it to the other Sonic games, it's kind of like the Mario games, where like you're gonna kind of compare the music between Mario games or whatever. Sure. But yeah, I mean, I think 3.5 is still a pretty good score.
Sure,
yeah, not bad.
All right, DMC, you want to start it off with Aged? How do you feel that this game?
So it's funny, I gave some praise to it as far as the gameplay and the visuals and the sounds, but I think it's a gameplay style that's best left in the past. So I gave it a 3.25, and I think that it's a game that you really have to go into with a fresh mindset. Like, if you're expecting this in any degree of a Sonic fan, you're not going to like it comparing it to Sonic 1 through 3 or Sonic Adventure, because that's a different kind of 3D. It is a very unusual entry in a series that it's never really done this before. I think there's Sonic Labyrinth is what also partially inspired it, which I think is also isometric, but I don't know much about that. But still, it's a bizarre entry. It's a bizarre entry in a series of pretty well defined entries. So yeah, 3.25. Visuals is good as far as the graphics, but I can see it being a turnoff for some people. The sound is still really good as far as the music, but you have to appreciate chiptune. And the controls, I can see really just not playing well. And it's, again, isometric 3D. Not many people do it anymore for a reason. I think like Hades does it technically, right? But that's completely different. So it's not even isometric, right?
Right. Hades is more like top down, isn't it?
I think it's at an angle. I've only seen pictures, honestly.
It's kind of like League of Legends, right? The way it is.
Oh,
like
okay, gotcha. So that's different than you.
What was I gonna say? Aged for me. I gave it a 3. I'm kind of right where you are, DMC, with it, and I think the biggest reason why I was able to constantly like keep playing this game for as long as I did is because I had a joystick, and I don't know that I could. I think if I just had a Sega Genesis D-pad, I think I would probably have lost my mind. DMC, you said you played it on original hardware. Did you wish you had a joystick?
So it's funny. I wish I would have pulled it out here. I am a huge Retro Fighters fan, so I did use their Retro Fighters Genesis controller, which has both a D-pad and a joystick or an analog stick on it. But it's actually technically a digital. Like, it's just the D-pad, but with the stick.
Okay.
That's moved to the side. Anyway, I didn't find it being too much of a benefit, and I actually did use the D-pad for about 3/4 of it, and I used the stick just to see if it maybe made it better. And I will say, using it like an Xbox controller with the stick, it was way too sensitive, and I didn't care for that. So I actually would use the D-pad on an Xbox controller instead, which you know how rough those can be.
So I wonder if I wouldn't have had as much of an issue with the control or the slippery, or maybe even like the camera issue if I used the D-pad and just took it a little slower, because I did feel like I was going all over the place immediately, and it took me a second to kind of adjust and be like, okay, just tap it, relax.
Yeah. And that's what I would say. Like, if you do go back to this game, which when I wrote my little review for my Discord, as I said, like I would plan to go back to this because I actually had fun for most of the game. So, but again, approach it where you want to go slow, which is not really Sonic. So.
Right. Yeah, exactly. His whole shtick is kind of like, let's go as fast as possible.
Oh yeah, that's him.
What about you? Yaiser, for aged?
So I'm down pretty far here at a 2.
Okay, I thought it was going to be lower than that for you, honestly. With the fact, I mean, you were only able to play it for what was it?
15 minutes.
I was going to say 2.5 minutes, but you played it for like 15 minutes, and I thought it was going to be lower. So I think that's all right.
But I mean, I thought visually, as long as you weren't moving around and the sound was okay, but and I don't know, maybe it was just me, maybe it was the setup I was using, and I was using joystick, I was using Xbox controller with the joystick, and it just felt so slippery and like hard to control, and maybe that was because of the joystick, I don't know. But I was always trying to go fast, and maybe DMC makes a point here, you got to just slow the fuck down and not think of it as a go fast type of Sonic game. But I don't know. I also have no reference. I never owned any Segas ever. So like I never played any Sonics. This is like my first Sonic ever that I played. So
yeah. Not a great one to start with, I don't think.
No.
I don't.
If I would have known that,
so
I was torn between selecting this for the show or actually the Sonic the Hedgehog for the Master System, the first one.
Yeah.
If I would have known that you've never played one before, I probably would have done that one instead, because that's also an interesting take on Sonic, where it's not necessarily got to go fast. So that's a fun one if you ever get a chance. I might actually like it more than the Sega Genesis one.
Okay, nice, cool.
Yeah, it's different. It's weird. But
all things considered, DMC, would you recommend that somebody relives this game?
I would. Like I said, I plan to relive it. I thought it was a fun game. I would just give them that caveat and be like, hey, take all your Sonic expectations and throw them out the 3D window, because you're gonna be doing something different. But if you go into it thinking it's a hide and seek game, I think you're gonna have fun. And I talked to some friends about this, and this is some of my friends' favorite games, Sonic games, as it turns out. And
wow,
it's an acquired taste, I guess, for some people. But yeah, I definitely would say relive this one. It is worth it.
Cool.
For sound alone, if anything.
If somebody came up to me and asked me if they should relive it, or if they should actually play it, I guess, for the very first time, my first question would be, I guess, do you like Sonic games, right? And if they say yes, I'd be like, okay, because this is not that, right? This is not a Sonic game. It's almost like we talked about Star Fox Adventures, right? And that's not really a Star Fox game.
Right.
So the thing that kind of killed Star Fox Adventures, it played like a Zelda game with a Star Fox like skin over it, essentially. And it wasn't really either game. So there was no point in playing it. I don't think this suffers as badly for something like that. I do agree with you, DMC, though, that if somebody were to play this game, you have to throw all of your preconceived notions of Sonic out the window, I think.
Right.
It's not a Sonic game. It's a fun game, though.
Yeah.
So if you like fun games, go for it. You just got to get past the Sonic thing, and I think you also have to get past the control thing. If you get used to the control within the first like 15-20 minutes, then cool, you're good to go. Yep. If you don't and you throw up on your keyboard, Yaiser, then don't play it.
I almost did.
Don't play it. I'm gonna assume you say no.
I would say no. Yeah. I kind of regret even the 15 minutes I put in.
Damn.
I'm being gonna be honest.
Am I not invited back? Jeez.
No. Of course you are.
No, it's always a great time.
I appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah. So final scores for this game, we have Yaiser coming in at a 2.4. We have myself coming in at a 3.4, and then DMC coming in at a 3.75. I think they're all pretty fair scores.
Yeah,
like I
I'd say
said.
so.
DMC, how many would you say that like the Genesis is a console that you've played a good amount of the library for?
No, actually, when it comes to the Genesis, it's mainly Sonic games. Like that's what I've mainly played on there. I've never played Phantasy Star 2 through 4. A lot of the beat 'em ups that people talk about, I've played maybe
like
for
Golden Axe and stuff like that.
Yeah, like if I played Golden Axe, it might actually just be the arcade. Streets of Rage, I've only played a little bit of here and there. It was mainly a Sonic machine for me growing up. So
okay, because I was gonna ask where this lined up in your all-time favorite like Genesis games, but I guess it's kind of top 5 just because there's only 5 Sonic games, right?
Well, I mean, there's a few other games. Like I do really like the X-Men game, which is kind of funny that you're asking about that for the Genesis. Both X-Men 1 and 2 are pretty solid titles. But it was definitely not the system I played as much as the NES or Super Nintendo. That's for sure. Gotcha. And that's what I'm trying to do is play more. Like when we're playing Beyond Oasis, that game is awesome. It's a lot of fun. I've never heard of it until a couple of years ago. So
yeah. All right. So now is the point in the show where we do the thing and we randomize the next game we're playing.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
You ready for that?
I'm ready.
All right, cool. And then DMC, of course, I will vaguely describe the game so you can try to guess it per usual.
I'll put on my thinking cap.
All right, sounds good. Here we go. All right. We have a top-down scrolling shooter developed by Compile and published by Toho, released in October of 1992 for the Super Nintendo.
Okay, so Toho, isn't that the Godzilla company?
I don't know. To be honest.
I feel like, but if I said Godzilla company, I didn't see your face perk up, then it's probably not a Godzilla game. But I don't know. I have no idea. The Gradius, I don't know.
It is Space Megaforce.
Nope.
What the fuck is that?
So
it's a top-down shooter developed by Toho in 1992 for the Super Nintendo.
Essentially,
a Netflix show with Steve Carell.
This is a very, very fast shmup. From what I've seen. I have never played it before. It gets a lot of really, really good ratings. So as a person that's not very experienced in shmups, I'm pretty excited to try it out. I didn't think that I would like Wild Guns because I mean that's not really a shmup, it's a gallery shooter. But it's kind of the same sort of idea. I didn't think I would like that one as much, and that's probably been the biggest surprise of this entire show so far for me, and one of my favorite games that we've played.
Dang. Yeah, same.
Yeah, so I mean, Space Megaforce, I'm very, very excited to try it out. We actually have the guys from Console Wars on YouTube joining us for that one.
Nice. Those guys are rad. That's awesome.
Yeah, they're joining us for that one. It's going to be the first time we ever have 2 guests on for a single episode. So that one will be a lot of fun. And DMC, do you have a recommendation for us to add?
So if I can do a couple, like I always do, because why not?
Yeah.
So you say that you guys go all the way up through Xbox 360 and stuff like that era, right?
The era right before it.
Oh, so you guys only go to just regular Xbox? Dang. Okay.
Correct.
Dang it. All right. I thought you guys said on the last one's PS3. Well, I'm going to take that off. I was going to say Quake 4, but never mind. Just because that one is a pretty solid story in my opinion. So there's a free one for anybody who's out there.
Well, we were actually thinking of doing newer games because one of my buddies wants us to do a super new game. I can't remember the name of it, but it'll come to me eventually.
I want you to play Dark Souls.
Okay, we'll get over that. But you know, we were thinking of kind of opening that up to the Patreon. Patreon can be like, it doesn't matter. It's not necessarily retro or whatever. But yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Well, yeah, that was one suggestion, just because as far as the Quake games go, they're all kind of different. The first one is a gothic horror, then 2 is where they introduced that it's like a space thing with the Strogg. But anyway, so that would have been one. Another one is actually one we just mentioned a moment ago, X-Men for the Genesis. I would definitely suggest playing that one. That's another interesting take. And then there was one more. You guys did do not Start. My God, why can't I remember the name of it right now? Oh my gosh, Star Tropics. Did you guys do the first one?
No.
Okay, so I was going to suggest actually the second one, Star Tropics 2: Zoda's Revenge. So that was going to be the other one that I was going to put out there. Some different kind of games. X-Men is a cool licensed one for sure, and I would suggest Star Tropics 2. I actually never played the first one, so that's the only reason why I'm suggesting the second one. But yeah,
sounds good. Cool. Thank you.
Cool. Man.
All right, I sent you
my heart's been racing for the past couple minutes
package.
as we've been getting closer.
Yeah.
All right, let me get this ready here.
our buddy Yaiser here is a hot sauce aficionado.
Yes, you could say that.
Yeah. You build your own hot sauces.
There we go.
I do. Yeah.
And that is garlic and red habanero.
Yeah, garlic and red habanero. So
the red ones are a little more spicy than the regular orange ones.
Oh no, I should have put on some chapstick because I'm pretty sure I've got like a little thing on my lips. So
oh no,
this will be fine. All right, so I'm not going to go too hard in the paint. I'll make sure it's a fair dab. I'm not going to do it over my keyboard because that could be a miserable time.
Yeah, don't go crazy, man. We just want to see. We just want to see how you like it.
Just a little taste test.
Because you have said in the past that you're a hot sauce boy.
I do like hot sauce. Let's see if I can do this on the camera. Can you see? Can you see the dab? That's a decent.
Oh
dab.
yeah.
I can see it.
Good enough.
Should I make it? Should I make it all
geez.
you?
Yeah,
there we go. Look at that. Here we go. Ready? I'm put on the tongue.
There you go.
You can feel that already.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This is gonna be probably a slow burn because it's not hitting hard yet.
Yeah, I mean it hits me pretty hard, but I'm not great with the hot stuff.
Right when it hits the back there.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
She's a builder.
it builds. It builds a little bit.
Oh, okay. What would you use this for besides sending it to someone? Wow.
I don't know.
It's numb on the tongue.
Yeah, he brought it over. What was it, like a month ago when you made it?
A couple weeks. It was like right
your
before,
first batch that you made.
Oh,
because you made this one. You made this batch a lot more recently.
Yeah.
You shrink wrapped it yourself, buddy.
Oh yeah.
How'd you do that? I don't even know how that works.
I got a heat gun.
Oh, is that how it works?
Yeah, that's it.
I'm not smart. Okay.
It's fun, dude. It looks
I'm alive.
cool when
it is hot though. My eyes might be watering a little bit, but
yeah.
I mean,
it's not insane.
I was gonna say if you had to compare it, like you said, you've done the hot ones thing before. The bomb, it's not as bad as the bomb.
Yeah, it's not as bad. I'd say it's maybe 1 or 2 stages for it. It's still building though. Like this is still causing some heat. So.
Yeah. I think if the bomb wasn't in hot ones,
it wouldn't.
That sauce would squeeze into 8 because it's hotter than 7.
It's hotter than Honey Badger.
Oh yeah,
because I use Honey Badger sometimes. I don't think I'd use that.
No,
and it's definitely hotter than Tears of the Sun, which was 6.
Oh, miles.
Yeah, you've put like half a bottle of Tears on the Sun of the Sun on pizza before, right?
Jesus,
it's not even really. I don't know. I don't even think that.
Just it's the volume though. That's the thing. Yeah. So this is really just sticking to the tongue. Like my mouth is fine, but my tongue is on fire now.
It's painful. It hurts. It's not like it's not like a sweaty type of hot. It's just like I feel like I just got stabbed in the tongue type of hot.
That's exactly how I would describe it. Yeah, it's just kind of sitting there, and I'm like, great. Oh, that beer cheese I made starting to sound better and better now.
Well, if you guys have made it this far in the episode, maybe you should know kind of what we are potentially planning to do here. DMC, am I cool to spoil this surprise?
Yeah, I think why not? Collaboration, and it sounds fun, and clearly I'm already enjoying myself, so go for it.
All right, so what we've kind of been considering here is that maybe season 4, season 5, somewhere down the line, we invite DMC back and we do a Hot Ones type of game review where we talk about a game based in fire or lava or some type of hot variation of a game. And then we talk about the game as we do the Hot Ones experience, where we do the 10 different sauces and gradually increase the numbness of our mouth. And so if you've made it this far, please suggest some games that are fire based or hot based or something like that in the comments, because we've come up with a couple, but there's not really a ton that are like really hitting me.
Dante's Inferno.
I'm not playing Fire Emblem.
Is that too new?
That.
Is that 360?
Dante's Inferno. Is that 360?
That's 360. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking Pokemon Fire Red, but you guys do only one RPG, which is fair. So.
Yeah, true. We could do that.
Can't wait till one of those games comes around.
Yeah, we could do that. That would be an episode 1 of the next season. I was also thinking of Fire and Ice, and I was like, it would be cool to have something cold to help us out.
Oh my gosh, it's still going.
Yeah.
And then I was just thinking, you know what? Like, it doesn't necessarily like scream hot, but basically this entire game takes place in hell. So Doom could be a potential
Doom.
game.
Yeah.
But
I actually
anyway,
just beat that for the first time recently. So yeah.
nice.
Cool.
But yeah, so if you guys have any suggestions for that, please throw them in the comments below. And DMC, if you want to tell everybody where they can find you one last time.
In the kitchen, about to get some milk. I'll tell you that. But no, I hi there. Sorry, this is getting hot. You can find me on TikTok. That's my primary stream there. I've got tons of videos I upload frequently. I stream every Tuesday and Wednesday there from 10 p.m. to 12 a.m. And then Twitch on Mondays from 10 p.m. to 12 a.m. We're doing the entire Resident Evil series. And then Thursdays and Fridays, we're just kind of picking stuff in the mornings. We do coffee and games before I go to work. So yeah.
Cool.
Yep.
Yeah, sounds awesome. So yeah, definitely go follow him on Twitch and TikTok. And join us next week when we play Space Megaforce with the guys from Console Wars, because that'll be a lot of fun.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
All
and
right.
Also, I got more of that sauce for sale if you want to.
Oh yeah, if anybody wants to
hit us in the DMs,
if anybody wants to drink Yaiser's sauce, then
if you like heat, this is no joke.
Yeah, for sure. If you like the challenge, then go ahead and do that. Yeah, so we will see you next week with Space Megaforce. See you guys later.
Peace.
Cheers.